Welcome to the CX Sessions from the Customer Experience Innovation Institute. Every episode, we provide an innovative perspective on customer experience from the people who are changing your world, one experience at a time.
Hi, and welcome back to CX Sessions from Melbourne, Australia. I'm your host, Simon Chris. Joining me today is author extraordinaire, Dan Gingiss. Dan's published two fantastic books, one on social customer care, and the other one spawned the name of the business, or the business spawned the name of the book. I'm not quite sure which. The Experience Maker. Dan, welcome to CX Sessions.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. It is a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah, it's great to catch up again. We haven't spoken for a while, so it's a really good chance to do that. Could we start off with you just introducing, if there's someone on the planet that hasn't heard of Dan Gingiss, introducing yourself, talking a little bit about your background, about your books, so that'd be great.
My pleasure. And I assume there are hundreds of millions of people that haven't heard of me, so happy to do that. I was born and raised in Chicago and spent 20 years in corporate America as a marketer at some pretty big brands, including McDonald's, Discover Card, which is a publicly traded company here in the US, a fairly large credit card company, and Humana, which is a healthcare company, also publicly traded. In the midst of that, I fell in love with customer experience. I like to say that marketing's in my head and customer experience is in my heart. And so I started veering off in that direction, really just becoming amazed at the power of customer experience and how it can change consumer behavior. And then in 2019, I decided to go off on my own. I did start the business first, the Experience Maker, and then it became the title of the book. But really what the Experience Maker is about is this idea that anyone in an organization can make experiences. No matter what your job description is or your job title, customer experience is part of your job. And the good thing is I think customer experience can be very approachable for people when we look at it as a series of little things versus a massive multi-year, multi-million-dollar transformational project. And so that's what I teach audiences and consulting clients how to do, is to think through customer experience one step at a time to make it more approachable.
Yeah, I remember once hearing you speak, and you were talking about that whole concept of, everybody is an experience maker, right down to the delivery guy. The guy who gets out of his truck at your front door, that's part of that experience. And I think people often forget that it's not just the call center or just the website or just the retail store. It's how does my box look when it turns up? Does it look nice? Is it packed well? Is it delivered by somebody who doesn't look like they're here to mug me? Or it's all of those things, right?
Yeah, I once caught a delivery driver on my Ring camera throwing my package onto the front stoop. Now, luckily, it wasn't anything that was fragile, but how did he know that? And so, yeah, that person worked for a delivery company. It didn't work for the retailer that I purchased from. But ultimately, you're right, that is part of the experience. And there are parts of the experience that sometimes we can't control, but we can control who we partner with, and we can certainly influence.
Yeah, are you finding that a lot, that companies are now really starting to look at who they partner with because they own part of that customer? I've often worried for airlines, the baggage handlers at the airport are not theirs at all, and they're some of the most, to use a US phrase, some of the most ornery characters I've ever seen. But you can't control that part of the experience. So are you seeing that with the clients that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the airlines can't control the weather either, and yet they get blamed when flights get canceled for weather. I live in Chicago, and we're home to O'Hare International Airport, which oftentimes gets very maligned. And I feel like it is one of the best airports in the world because it's fast and it's efficient. But yeah, you're going to get delayed a lot because of weather. That has nothing to do with the airport or the airline. We do live in a place that gets a lot of snow and that gets cold weather and storms. And yes, that is going to cause you to be delayed. But sometimes as consumers, we have to take a step back and just kind of take a deep breath and be like, all right, this is no one's fault. It is frustrating, but we just have to deal with it. And so this happens a lot in different industries. I'm a big sports fan, and if you think about any sports franchise, they can control a lot of things about the fan experience. They can control what food gets sold and what beverages get sold, how comfortable the seats are, whether you can see the game, what the scoreboard looks like, all these things. But they can't control whether the team wins or loses. They can't control whether it's a sunny day or a rainy day. And so there are, and what do you remember when you come back from a sporting event? You remember if your team won, and you remember if you got soaking wet because it was raining, right? And so that can be very frustrating when things are, when you can't control it. But the advice then just is to control as much as you can of the process, and then to partner in a smart way with people that have the same philosophy on experience that you do.
Yeah, and that can be tough because you may do all the due diligence in the world, and then when it comes to who are we going to sign as our partner to deliver this part of the service, the CFO and procurement suddenly step in and, oh, well, no, hang on, these guys over here are a little bit cheaper, and I'm sure they'll do a good job. And you've kind of got all that type of stuff going on.
Yeah, and so Simon, you make a great point, because I'm a believer that if you make every business decision through the lens of the customer, then you're going to make better business decisions. That doesn't mean we can't make money. That doesn't mean we're not supposed to try to make a profit. Of course we are. But if we only look at it through the profit lens and we skip the part about the consumer, then we can often make bad business decisions, right? The guy that was just a little bit cheaper, but a whole lot worse. That's going to end up costing you way more than the savings you had by going with the cheap. But if we look at it through the customer lens, then we can make decisions that are good for the customer. And because it's good for the customer, they're going to stay with us longer. They're going to spend more money with us, and they're going to refer other people to us. And that's how we're going to grow, because we provide a great experience. So we can still make a decision that results in more revenue and lower costs and a happy customer. It's just when we try to make the decisions that are only based on more revenue or lower costs and don't remember the customer, I find that we tend to make bad decisions. If you go back to the airlines, I always imagine this scenario. This is a fictional scenario, but it happens somewhere. But I always imagine this guy in a finance department saying, "Boss, I figured out how we can make another couple $2 billion a year." And the boss says, "Well, tell me." And the guy says, "We'll start charging people to check their bags." And the boss says, "But they've been doing it for free for 50 years. And the guy says, "Exactly." And that's how they make a decision that ends up really aggravating pretty much every passenger in the world just to make more money. And so is it fair for them to charge to check bags? Yes. But the way that I would have done it is I would have provided some additional value to the customer in exchange for now charging for them for something that used to be free. What that value looks like, I don't know. But maybe if you check a bag, you can pick a better seat, or you get a free beverage on the plane, or something where it feels like, hey, I have to give a little more, but I'm also going to get. Versus, I just think the airline is taking advantage of me because this used to be free and now they're charging me a lot of money. So that's an example of a decision that was made purely for economic reasons that did not at all consider the customer.
Yeah, I have another similar example. Here in Australia, we're kind of heading into deep winter. Not like a winter in Chicago, but winter nonetheless. And it's also school holidays at the moment. So on last weekend, the weekend just gone, there was a group of people at a ski resort called Perisher Valley. They paid a couple of $100 for a day ticket, a lift pass. And all that was on social media was people filming the enormously long queues to get on a chairlift. And people were, of course, saying, "Why did I pay $200 to stand in a line for 45 minutes? And it's just the mountain selling too many tickets, because, back to your point, Hey, we can make some, hey, the boss, I know how we can make some more money. Let's just keep selling tickets. So yeah,
Exactly.
there's a lot of that going on.
For sure. And then the calculus there is we'll make this much more money. We'll only irritate a few customers. So we'll lose a couple customers, but that's okay because we'll make this much money. And
Yeah.
again, I don't like those kinds of decisions because I don't think they're very good long-term decisions. They may make more money for a day or for a week, but ultimately what's going to happen is those people that were standing in line are going to find a different mountain to ski on, is what they're going to do, right? Because they're just going to say, I don't like coming here anymore, and I'd like to go somewhere else where they're going to treat me better.
Yeah, for sure. I was once asked in a job interview, if you have a sales department and a customer service department, and the CEO tells you you have to close one of them, which one do you close? And I said, you close your sales department. Without hesitation. And he said to me, you didn't even hesitate. Why do you say that? And I said, well, the sales department will make a single sale. The customer service department will make multiple sales over a whole lot of time because people are getting the experience that they want. Let's change gears. Let's change gears a little. You talk to so many businesses. You're out there talking to CX professionals all the time. What's the big challenges going on in the industry right now? What are people wrestling with? Is it still same old, same old? Is it post-COVID? Is it new tech? What's going on out there?
Yeah, it's a little of both. I think the first thing is that post-COVID brought in this era of much higher customer expectations. I think what happened is we all went through this period where, as consumers, we were very patient with companies as they were trying to figure out this COVID thing, right? Everybody was flailing around. Nobody had a business plan that took into consideration having to close their offices entirely or having to not be able to run their business at all. And I think consumers, for the most part, were pretty relaxed and casual about it. But then when we came out of it, it was sort of like, okay, enough's enough, and I want a better experience than I ever had before. And today, especially the younger generations, are willing to pay more money for a better experience. So there's this pressure to create a better experience. I think the other thing certainly that is causing a lot of strife and hair loss or gray hairs or whatever it's going to be is AI and specifically ChatGPT. And what does this all mean? What is it? How is it going to change things? And I am a big fan of technology, even though I like to say that I am not a shiny object chaser. And what that means is when new technology comes out, I like other people to go figure it out first, and then I'll join once it's going to stick around. This came from being in the social media space for a while, where for a number of years there was a new social media channel every year, and most of them didn't last. So if you spent all this time becoming the top influencer on some platform that doesn't exist anymore, then what did that get you? And so I will say, though, I am all in on ChatGPT. I think the technology is unbelievable. And what is amazing to me is that we are still at the very beginning of the potential. And so the question becomes, just like when chatbots first came out, the question becomes, how are we going to use them? Now, some companies, when chatbots first came out, said, awesome, we're going to fire our customer service department. That way we can keep the sales department and we'll just have the chatbots take care of customer service. Well, we all know that didn't work out real well, and that wasn't a great answer. And neither is firing your marketing team or your creative team or whatever because you think ChatGPT is going to write everything for you. So, like, my view on AI broadly is that it is absolutely fantastic for supplementing and complementing humans because it can make humans better. It can allow us to do things faster. It can crunch data way faster than the human mind can. I like to imagine a customer service agent sitting next to you remember when IBM first unleashed Watson and it went on Jeopardy, the game show, right? And it beats all the humans, right? So I always like to imagine, well, what if I'm a customer service agent and I'm sitting next to Watson? So now I can sit in my chair with the confidence that I know the answer to any possible question that's coming at me because I just asked Watson. It's sitting right here, right? Yep. So with that confidence, now I can go and do what Watson can't do, which is have a human conversation with another human. And so it allows me to do my job better. And it complements my skills, right? Because it can find the answer to questions way faster than I can. For me, I'm going to have different screens and be copying and pasting and looking all over the place. But Watson's just going to tell me the answer. So now I can do what I do best, which is have a conversation, make a connection, show empathy, do all the things that computers can't do.
Human, yeah. And thank you for setting the ball so I can spike it. I think all the listeners would understand that podcasts are recorded a couple of weeks before they're published. And so I'm next week, by the time this comes out, I will have released my new book, The AI Empowered Customer Experience. And it is basically a book full of use cases for conversational AI, generative AI, and other forms of AI across the customer experience. And
I can't wait to read that.
Yeah, the whole even you didn't know that I was putting that out. That whole chasing the new shiny object thing is definitely in there. I refer to it as FOMO, just fear of missing out. Let's run out and buy something. And they invariably buy the wrong tool for what they're trying to do. But there's some amazing tools out there in AI right now that are going to be game changers. Not quite yet, but they're going to be.
Yeah, because they're all getting better and better and smarter, and that to me is exciting. It can be a little scary, but it also is really exciting. And it's just understanding that, okay, this is a new tool, but it doesn't. It's not world-changing, game-changing right now yet, as you said.
Correct.
And maybe down the road it is, but I'm still holding out hope that we as humans are going to always desire human connection. And so so AI can only go so far. It can go really far, but if we want human connection, it's not going to be able to go all the way.
Look, it can fake empathy. You can teach it, but sometimes it'll become over empathetic. If somebody said, "Oh, look, I have to cancel my flight because I crashed my car and can't go," you and I would say, "Oh, that's really inconvenient. That's a pain." AI may well go, "Oh no, not a crashed car. Oh my God, how do I deal with it?" Just empathy that's too far over or too far under. So it's a human trait.
Sure. Simon, I'd actually say I'd add on to that, and I'd say my first question would be, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Right. That's the first thing I want to know, and I don't think a computer asks that. I think a computer does what you said, right? Is that it reacts to car crash, and that means something, and so, but it doesn't make the logical jump to, "Are you okay? Did you hurt yourself? Like, I care about you." That's not necessarily an immediate logical jump.
Correct. So yeah, I think, look, particularly in contact centers, everything was going to take away the contact center. I interviewed Brad Cleveland a couple of weeks back, and he said the same thing. First the ACDs were going to get rid of call centers, then the internet was going to get rid of call centers, then IVRs was going to, everything was going to do. It's not. Humans still need human contact. And there's a great quote that I picked up that said, "AI is not going to take your job, but somebody using AI is going to take your job." Because
very smart.
Humans powered by AI is just the way to go about it. Let's cast forward, and I'm going to ask you to gaze into your crystal ball. What's in the future, man? What's coming?
Well, I'm not a soothsayer by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that what is already happening and is going to get exacerbated is that companies that aren't competing on customer experience are going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And the best example I can come up with on this one is I love talking about Uber, because Uber is one of the most innovative companies in the world. It was a complete industry disruptor. It didn't just disrupt the taxi driving part of it, but the passenger part of it. I mean, literally got us to rethink what it means to get from point A to point B. Unbelievable. And then 4 years later, Lyft came out. And today, if you get in a car, I dare you to tell me whether you're in an Uber or a Lyft. You're probably in both because the driver's working for both companies, which means that now their products are completely undifferentiated. And so what do people do? They do what I do, which is you have both apps on your phone and you put the address into both, and whichever one's cheaper is the one you take. That's not a sustainable business model. So we have to compete on experience. Uber was able to do that for a while, for 4 years. And I would argue today that neither one of them are doing it in particularly well because they don't stand out from each other. And so one of the things that I always teach in any industry, this is true in any industry, you could be, just in the last few weeks, I've done keynotes in the car wash industry, the spa industry, the boating industry, the higher education industry, the retail industry. It doesn't matter. If you are competing on price, you're going to lose. If you're competing on product or service, you're going to get copied eventually. Yeah. But if you're competing on experience, you can stand out. Because experience, first of all, is delivered by your employees, and only you have your employees. So by definition, there's a uniqueness to it. But when we compete on experience and customers fall in love with us, then we create this kind of loyalty where they're not going to be attracted by a sale down the road. It doesn't matter. Your promo rate, you can have it. I like this company because this company's always been good to me. And I know they're going to have my back, and I know they're going to treat me well. And they know me, and they know my family. And this is what's important. And so the soothsayer in me says, if you're still refusing to compete on customer experience, you don't have long.
Yeah. Yeah, your days are numbered. That's definitely true. What else? What else future-wise? Anything else that you're just starting to see on the horizon, or an industry that hasn't really been in the customer experience space rapidly moving there?
Well, one of the slowest industries, at least in the United States, has been healthcare, and I really am hopeful. I spent 3 years working in healthcare, and it was only 3 years because I realized that even the experience maker was not going to be able to impact this fast enough. But certainly in the US and definitely in other parts of the world as well, healthcare needs help. The patient experience is so critical. And if you think about it again from a business perspective, and because as I say often, and just got done saying this stuff applies to every industry. When you think about healthcare, I think one of the reasons why it is so important is that there's a huge emotional weight on people, right? It's our bodies, it's our health, or our loved ones' health. It's going to be emotionally taxing. It's a big financial thing for people, right? Because healthcare in many countries is expensive, or if I have to have surgery or something big happens, I'm hospitalized, it's a lot of money. These are all things that raise the stakes for people. That make the experience even more important than it would be. It's not like just going and buying a pair of shoes, right? And so I do think that I think that certainly in the US, that healthcare has, it's this old system that was built 100 years ago that really has not been able to escape itself. And so what happens is, and this happens in other large companies as well, is to use the healthcare example or euphemism metaphor, is we keep putting band-aids on the experience instead of knocking it all down and rebuilding it. And if you think about, well, how should we build a health experience today? Well, my first question is, in the year 2023, why can I not have my entire health history on this device? Why can I not see every time I've ever been to a doctor, taken a medicine, taken a vitamin, whatever? The technology's there to do that, but it isn't here yet. At least it isn't here in the US. So I think those are some of the big things that we're going to see eventually. And it's probably going to take a disruptor like Uber to come in to that industry and really do something different.
It's rife for it though, and you can see an AI-enabled disruptor just ripping holes in a couple of industries, but particularly healthcare. I want to pivot into 3 questions I love to ask everyone, and I'm particularly interested to ask the first one of the experience maker, which is for you personally, Dan, when you're not on stage, you're out doing whatever it is that you do with your family, whatever. What is a great customer experience for you? What does that look like or feel like?
Yeah, great question. The brand that always sticks out to me, and it is certainly a big, well-known brand, is Starbucks.
Mhm.
And the reason is, I really think that company's not about coffee. I think that company is about experience. And everything they do, if you start to sort of peel back the onion a little bit, from the design of all of the stores, right? In some ways, they're very similar. I feel like you could put me blindfolded in a Starbucks almost anywhere in the world, and I would know I was in one. And yet, when you take the blindfold off, what you see is a lot of the design elements are very localized, and the artwork on the wall and other types of things are local. Many of them have little push boards, cork boards, so that local businesses can put up advertisements. So they're part of the community. The fact that you can order a billion different combinations of drinks is the ultimate form of personalization and customization. And then the fact that, of course, they write your name on the cup, sometimes spelled right, sometimes not. That isn't for them. That's for you, because everybody likes to see their name in places, right? And Starbucks understands that. And so, and plus, I guess I'm a huge Howard Schultz fan. I've read his books. I think they're very inspiring, and I think he just, talk about a game changer that disrupted an industry. He figured out how to get people to pay $6 for a coffee and be happy and come back the next day and do it again.
How do you take one of the world's most commoditized products that was going to the cheapest bidder and turn it into something that people will pay extra for just to get? And I'm not a huge coffee drinker, but really, is Starbucks that much better than Seattle's Finest or whatever? It's coffee at the end of the day,
I
right?
mentioned being blindfolded. If you gave me a taste test, I am not positive that I could figure out which one is Starbucks, even though I've had more Starbucks than any other brand.
Yeah.
But that's not, as I said at the beginning, I don't think that's the point. The
Yeah.
point is, even if you don't like coffee, you come, you sit in the comfortable chairs, you talk with your friends. It's an experience to just be there. And I have a buddy that I meet several times a week. In nice weather, we sit outside, we have a coffee, we just let the world go by and chat with each other. And it's great. I look forward to it. It's peaceful. There's all these feelings that just have nothing to do with the beverage that I'm drinking. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's so impressive. If you go into a McDonald's, is the experience really anything other than the hot dog? I mean, than the hamburger and the fries? Not really. No, it's about the food that you're eating. And I think Starbucks has made it where obviously it is very high quality, but it really is about everything that's going on around you. Even the music playlists that they have, that you can download on Spotify, right,
Yep.
are so carefully crafted. So for me, that's just one of my favorite experiences, and it's a brand that I love.
Okay, so second question. What do you wish companies did more of, other than hire Dan Gingiss as a consultant? What do you wish companies were doing more of in this space?
So I think the simplest thing that companies can do better is to have as many employees as possible, up to and including the CEO, become a customer of their own company. And what this does is it literally changes your perspective 180 degrees. Because when we work in an office, when we work in a business, we face outward towards our customers, but the customers are looking inwards towards us. It's like looking in a mirror, right? It's kind of the same thing, but not exactly. And if we never actually see what's going on from the customer perspective, then we can't make it better. We can't truly empathize with them. So what do I mean by this? Well, okay, if you own a coffee shop, this is easy. Walk in, order a coffee, sit down and enjoy it, right? But maybe not. Maybe you have a software company or you have something that doesn't have a tangible product. I still want you to log into your system and create an account. I want you to forget your password and go through that process, because I guarantee you it's annoying. Why? Because I've never found a forgotten password process that isn't annoying.
Yeah.
Go through and do the things that customers do. And what I find is, customer experience is one of these things that it requires basic intuition, right? We are all consumers in our real lives. We know what we like and we know what we don't like. The funny thing is we do a lot of things that we don't personally like to our customers. One of my favorite examples, real quick, when I was at the credit card company, I was running the website. And I noticed that when people logged in, one of the first things we did was pop up an ad to them because we wanted them to buy something. And I said, can we get rid of this pop-up ad? People said, why? And I said, because no one likes pop-up ads. Like, everybody hates them. So why would we do it? And the marketing team said, well, we have a really good reason why we do it. It has a great conversion rate. I said, really, what's the conversion rate of the pop-up ad? They said 6%. It's better than any other conversion rate we have. I said, that's wonderful. That means we're ticking off 94% of customers when they come, right? To get a 6% conversion. And you wouldn't know that, except that when I logged onto the website and I got the push ad, it annoyed me. And so I know that other customers are going to be annoyed. So do your best to become a customer of your own business, and not just, this is more than listening to customers. This is about being a customer and going through the process with an open mind, like you would walking into some other place, right? You go into a restaurant and, the table's dirty, you're critical, but then you don't even realize the table's dirty in your place too, right? Because you see it every day and you're not paying attention to it.
Awesome. And the third question is about books or podcasts.
Yes.
What are you reading right now, or what are you listening to? What's influencing you right now?
Well, in this space, I think that there are two things that one that I just read and one that I am in the process of reading. The one that I just read is a wonderful book called Creating Superfans by Brittany Hodak.
Yep.
Brittany is wonderful. She's a fellow customer experience speaker and consultant. She came from the music industry, and so she talks about this idea of being fans of bands, of musicians, and how this is really very applicable to what we're trying to do in the business world. So I love her take on it. Wonderful storytelling. And then my buddy and former podcast co-host Joey Coleman, who had a best-selling book a few years ago called Never Lose a Customer Again, just this week as we are recording, released Never Lose an Employee Again. In fact, I think I have a copy right here. Here we go.
I've ordered mine, but it hasn't arrived yet. So
hasn't made it to Australia yet. Well, obviously, employee experience, customer experience, they're two sides of the same coin. And we cannot expect our employees to provide a great experience if they don't know what one looks like. And I think what Joey did so brilliantly is, if you read his first book, he had a methodology that he teaches in the book. He uses the exact same methodology in this book, but now applies it to employee experience. And why that's so brilliant is because they really are very similar. The way that you make a customer happy and the way that you make an employee happy are not that different. So I have loved the book so far and highly recommend it.
Yeah, I have at times said to a CEO, ask them, who is your customer? And they start rambling off about, the middle-aged male and I went, no, none of them are your customer. Your frontline staff are your customer. Those people you're talking about are the customer of the frontline staff. Don't think so. Look, exactly. This has been wonderful. And as always, when you and I get together, this could turn into a 3-hour podcast. But I always promise listeners that it'll only be 30 minutes. So we will wrap it up. But I just want to say thank you so much. If people want to get hold of your books, they can definitely do that on Amazon. If they want to get hold of you, what's the best way to do that, Dan?
Either LinkedIn or you can email me directly, dan@dangingiss.com. That will come right to me, not to an assistant or an AI bot or anything like that. It'll come right to my inbox, and I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I can testify that does. You respond to every email that I send. So, Dan, thank you again, and thank you for being on CX Sessions.
My pleasure, Simon. Thank you.
That's it for this session. Let us know what you think or recommend someone for a future session at cxii.com.au. This podcast is brought to you by the Customer Experience Innovation Institute. Thanks for joining us, and tune in again soon to hear more CX Sessions.